totally how this recording system's working at all. Now you're probably thinking, have you ever gone through one of these video recordings and it not worked out? It's possible that I've been talking for a whole week and none of it is coming out in the videos. And how do you deal with that? The way I deal with that is that it's therapy to me. To some degree, I'm kind of like a guy on a radio show talking, and there's a little child in the background of my mind that's sitting there listening to all the things I have to say and saying, "Wow, I really like this radio show." And so when the recording doesn't pick up, I'm just kind of like, it's therapy. And that's what makes me. That's how it makes it easy for me to go through it. It's actually better that I do it this than to go in and chat in the game. But this character that I have right now, if I go to chat faction, notice I can't. I can put stuff in there and hit and send it. I can't see anything. That's because I'm using something called an NS character, and one of the things that I guess the way they set the game up is that they found out that they could create a character in the game that can't share anything of the faction attribute. So that they have a faction attribute, I guess, on the characters, and they say, what if we created a character that didn't use that attribute or didn't have the capacity to discern that attribute? And they bestowed that on this character. And so anything that has anything to do with specialness of being a part of a faction is not in this character. He doesn't have the capacity to use faction specific weapons. He doesn't have the capacity to use faction chat. He can't even use the jump pads that are faction jump pads. Like in an amp station, if an NS character goes to use a jump pad, it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work in Howling Pass. I haven't tested it on the amp stations, but I'm pretty sure it should work because the bit in their character that determines whether or not they can use a jump pad is a faction bit, and they don't have that bit filled in. It's filled in with 0, so they have 0 faction abilities on the VS, the TR, and the NC. Now you may think from a hacker standpoint, okay, so is there a capacity you could probably hack it so that you can use jump pads no matter what faction you're part of? And it's probably certainly possible to do that, but you would have to figure out some way of getting past the PlayStation system to go in there and modify that bit. And that's probably how some people hack these games, is by changing the firmware in the PS4 to give them the capacity to adjust properties of their character. Like the ability to fall through the surface or to move under the surface somewhere and shoot at people from underneath, is just a manipulation of the message information that is sent to the server to let it know where your character is. The server may be offloading some of the understanding of where the person should be on the client, and the client is lying to the server about where the person is, and the server is just going along with it and is not really questioning why the person is underneath the ground, because that code is not in the server, it's in the client. And that is to reduce the server load, the amount of information the server has to deal with. But the server admins are going to realize certain people are cheating, and all they have to do is do analysis on the recordings of their, they have the capacity to record everything you ever do in every video game and play it back. They have that capacity. They don't do it, I guess, because they have a tendency to look at people, but they could have the capacity to record it all, and I don't know why they don't. They should record everything that goes through the lines. Get tons and tons of terabytes of drives. All you need is probably 20 terabyte drives. And you can record everything that ever occurs in a year of game playing, and play it back. And that would be a way for these guys to determine if there was certain kinds of people hacking, and they would know who to ban, because all they'd have to do is run the script analysis on the gameplay and determine that certain people were not supposed to be under the ground. You know, that game characters are under the ground and getting scoring from that. They could fix the game. They could fix it so that nobody is able to do that. It's just that they don't think of things like my brain thinks. And I'm not going to go out there and enforce it on them. I'm just going to suggest things. It's up to them to decide whether or not they're going to do it. It's in their ballpark. I threw the ball into their over the fence. They have to go and deal with that, because I don't have the capacity to have access to the ball in their yard. So maybe they'll learn something from this.